The most pivotal chapter of Father's plan is upon us. Fighting machines from the holy land of Dagestan are this close from truly taking over the MMA world, and while Abdul Manap is gone, rest in peace, Khabib has taken his place.
He want always we win, you know, it was his goal.
And that's why you guys are 91-1.
His best friend is on the cusp of breaking a record. His cousin is competing for the bantamweight world title. But what's this anxiety?
You look nervous to everybody as we're watching. Are you that nervous when Islam Makhachev is fighting?
You want an honest answer?
Yes.
Very nervous.
In the main event, Islam defends his lightweight title for the 4th time, and his opponent is his toughest test in the division.
No, I mean, like, people think he's unbeatable and like crazy wrestler, but like I took him down when I was 22 years old. So.
In the co-main event, undefeated Umar Nurmagomedov attempts to derail the unstoppable machine, the bantamweight champion Merab Dvalishvili.
If you don't wanna, everybody want you fight, leave the belt. I don't care about you.
Okay, this belt, the money, everything else, okay? You have to be the man first.
In a light heavyweight bout, two former champions living under the shadow of the champion clash to see who gets out of there first. I gotta say, this is one hell of a way to start the year.
Thank you to the Fighting Business. Absolutely amazing. It's one of my favorite new channels going right now.
Jamahal Hill versus Jiri Prochazka. You have one of the most beloved light heavyweights, Jiri Prochazka, facing maybe, possibly, highly likely the most disliked active fighter in the company, Jamahal Hill. Funny bit is, these two have gone through the same painful shit in the past few years. Both were champions who got the belt from Glover, were sidelined due to bad injuries and forced to vacate the title. After a long period of rest and recovery, they made the return and got knocked out by Glover's instrument of vengeance, Alex Pereira. Jiri faced Boitan first at UFC 295, and up until the knockout, he did decent, but that left hook landed. Then it was Hill's turn. Pereira versus Hill was the main event of UFC 300, and Hill, after talking a whole lot, could not get past the first round. It was a strong KO of the year contender, and since that loss, Hill has been... Just watch my video on the guy to appreciate how truly deranged the coping is. Jiri was given another shot at Boitan at UFC 303, and my boy was knocked out twice in a single fight. But in contrast to Hill, who talked mad shit and turned the MMA community against him, Jiri sent one message following the loss. He had to get better or move on.
Thanks to you, Alex, for a fight. And only one thing goes on my mind. I need to evolve to the next level or don't fight again.
Jiri Prochazka and Jamahal Hill were on a collision course long before Alex Pereira bulldozed his way into the light heavyweight division. Back then, it felt inevitable. Two champions, two knockout artists destined to test each other's limits, but injuries, title vacancies, and the Pereira era postponed their showdown. Now, after painful setbacks and defeats, their paths finally cross, not as champions, but as contenders clawing their way back to the top.
Jamal, don't speak about my performances, fight IQ and all these things, because in your last fight, you didn't show nothing.
Your last performance, you got dominated and knocked out. Completely shut down, completely exposed, and then got done bad, bro. You did bad. I got caught. You got dominated. It's a huge difference.
Jiri thrives in chaos. His unpredictable movement and wild attacks overwhelms opponents, but against someone like Hill, who is patient and accurate, it's a dangerous gamble. Jiri's best path is to push the pace early, keep Hill guessing, and avoid prolonged exchanges where Hill can find his timing. Hate him or loathe him, but Hill is one of the best counter-punchers in the division, and Jiri's tendencies to leave openings and no fucks given style will provide plenty of opportunities. Most light heavyweights cannot compete with the madness of Jiri, and Jiri himself fights with complete disrespect and disregard, but Hill has the power and the precision to get his respect early. For Jiri, Owens reaffirms his identity as one of the top fighters in the light heavyweight division. For Hill, this is a small chance to regain some respect and prove that his title reign wasn't a fluke. Both fighters are entering this battle with something to prove, and that will make this fight unpredictable, violent, and unforgettable. Whether Jiri reclaims his position through chaos and returns to the dark cabin to better himself, or Hill barely restores his status with precision and gloats for the rest of time on Twitter, this is the kind of fight that could very well redefine a career, or completely end it. Guess who I'm rooting for here? Merab Dvalishvili vs Umar Nurmagomedov. Merab Dvalishvili has slowly racked up an elite resume. Now before you get your pitchforks and flame, hear me out. The guy is on an 11-fight win streak at 135 and he has truly beaten them all. I don't know what happened post the Ricky Simon loss, but something changed in the men's biology. Maybe some EPO or something, because not a single bantamweight has been able to stop him since then. Not even the very elite. It didn't matter if you were the best striker or an Olympic wrestler. Once Merab started as usual, shoot 50 takedown a fight routine, you just had no chance of matching his stupid output and pace. He stayed away from the title pictures for years despite being fully deserving, but once Aljo moved on, Merab was given the shot against Sean O'Malley, and well, he did to O'Malley what he did to everyone else. He didn't pressure as much, probably due to the power and precision of Sean, but for the most part, he pressured, stomped the feet, and kneed the thigh, and O'Malley did not know what to do. Say what you want about his personality and cringe charisma, but Merab deserved it. He cleaned out the contenders first and then became champion, but when Joe Rogan pointed out the next contender who happened to be in the arena, Merab did not seem too interested.
Give us your thoughts on that matchup.
I respect and I love Dana White, whatever he wants.
Umar Nurmagomedov was right there with just one ranked win at 135, but even with a paper-thin resume, you knew that this guy was the toughest matchup for Merab and pretty much the only one left. Umar was 18-0, and you know for a fact that he was someone special. His resume, on the other hand, was lacking. I find it hilarious that as the closer Merab got to the title, the UFC started pushing Umar towards the title picture. Shows what the company had in mind. But anyway, on UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi, Umar was in the cage with his first real test, Corey Sandhagen. Corey was already deserving of the title shot, but he decided to risk it all and take Umar's O. And he failed. If you need more proof that Umar is someone really good, then just rewatch that fight. Never mind his grappling, this guy outstruck Corey on the feet, and even though it was just one win, there was no one else left for Merab, and Dana White promised us all, Merab versus Umar was going to happen.
Is that the plan to do that fight? Like, is that the next fight you want at bantamweight, Merab versus Umar?
Absolutely.
This led to a meltdown for Merab, who flipped out each time Umar was even mentioned during his interviews.
You said that the fight against Umar December was too close. You put out a tweet saying that you want to fight O'Malley in November. Does that mean you are scared of Umar?
And where is this guy? Where he's taking fight, he's scared. He's fighting somebody else. Where is him?
They also started calling out O'Malley, who was out for a year due to a surgery, and Petr, who had recently won but was 50-45 by Merab not too long ago. According to most fans, this was one of the most shameful attempts at ducking, second only to Jones and Aspinall, but Dana said it, and he hates Merab enough, and we got this as the co-main event.
You're not a good man.
I'm the man.
You are piece of shit, okay? You are piece of shit. You lost respect. You lost respect as a man for me, okay?
And he was clearly not happy. You know, I've kind of given up on analyzing and breaking down Merab fights because it doesn't really matter, does it? Petr was a far better striker, but throwing 50 takedown attempts and it didn't really matter. Henry Cejudo was a far more accomplished wrestler, and while he did take Merab down and stuffed a few takedowns, he gassed out, while Merab only got stronger. That Olympic level wrestling didn't really matter either. Head to head, Umar is the better striker and the grappler. He trains his grappling with the likes of Habib and Islam, and his striking is good enough to beat Corey, but his cardio. Is his cardio good enough to keep up with Merab? Good enough to stuff 10 takedowns per round? Good enough to compete with the machine-like strength and output of the champion?
And the reason Umar, who's ranked, I think, 11 or 10, couldn't get a fight is nobody wanted to fight the guy. He's a savage, man. You look at Merab and you look at Sugar, you're like, yeah, I can see him beating him.
Umar has to do what no one else has done, slow down the machine. His striking is sharper, his footwork is more fluid, and his grappling pedigree is undeniable. But the key isn't just stuffing takedowns here. It's about staying there with Merab and matching his tenacity, strength, and output for however long this goes. The first grappling exchange might very well go Umar's way, but what about the 5th, the 10th, the fucking 50th?
I genuinely, in my heart, felt bad for Peter.
49 takedown attempts?
It's insane.
Holy shit.
Frantic pace he was doing, sprinting for 25 minutes. I'm like, how is that even humanly possible?
No matter how skilled you are, once your body begins to slow down, that technique and precision goes out the window and you start walking backwards, probably horrified because that cardio freak of nature looks like he can shoot another 50 takedowns. That's been the story of every Merab's opponent for the past several years. Will Umar be any different? For Merab, this fight is about cementing his legacy. An 11-fight win streak is impressive, but beating an undefeated Nurmagomedov That's how you solidify GOAT status. It's about silencing the doubters who claim he ducked Umar and proving that no one, not even Dagestan's finest, can match his pace and pressure. For Umar, this fight is about validation. He's been hyped as another successor to the Nurmagomedov dynasty, but his resume has yet to catch up to his reputation. A win over Merab instantly propels him to the top and proved that he is who they say he is, the Khabib of 135. This is the co-main event, but make no mistake, we're getting one of the best fights in recent memory in the first pay-per-view of the year. Merab's relentless pressure versus Umar's technical brilliance. It's machine versus precision, and someone's will is about to break. Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. In April 2019, 23-year-old Arman Tsarukyan made his UFC debut on short notice. That usually doesn't go very well, and it was against Islam Makhachev. Sure, he wasn't the Islam we know today, but even back then, he was hyped up as the next Khabib, future lightweight champion, and a prodigy of combat. Islam was expected to get an easy win, but Arman, barely an adult and fighting on short notice, wasn't going to be a victim like all those lightweights who faced Islam. The UFC debutant gave Islam a fight. He wasn't outright overpowered or overwhelmed and even took Makhachev down, but for the most part, Islam looked to be one step ahead, and he won by a clear decision. It was challenging and competitive, but Islam was the clear winner. But maybe, down the line, Arman would be able to... Arman got a lot of praise for his performance, considering who he was up against, and he stamped his claim as a future prospect of the division. Following the impressive debut showing, Arman fought, demonstrating time and time again why he was indeed the future, and he only lost one time against Gamrot. Most of the media scored the fight for Arman anyway, so despite the L on his record, his stock didn't take a hit, and soon enough, he entered title contention. All of the new blood at 155 had failed to usurp the old guard, but Arman was an exception, and he brutally knocked out Beneil Dariush to advance up the rankings. His true test, however, came at UFC 300, and he faced former champion Charles Oliveira. Arman once again proved that he had the skills to compete with the very elite guys, but the fact that he had survived not one but two nearly fatal submissions from Charles of all people spoke a lot about his heart and grit. He won in the end, and finally, at last, 155 had a new contender. His run to title contention was great, but on the other side, his very first UFC opponent, Islam, remained one step ahead, actually, way far ahead of Arman. With Khabib retired and the path to the title now open, Islam ragdolled every lightweight that had the misfortune of facing him. Despite a relatively lacking resume, Islam fought for the lightweight title at UFC 280 against the seemingly unbeatable Charles Oliveira and dominated, finishing Dubronx in the second round. From there, he beat Volk 2 times, once by decision that left a bit of doubt. Doubt he erased with a bad head kick KO, and looking back, he ruined the tail end of Volk's prime. With 2 title defenses to his name, Islam attempted to tie the record at UFC 302, and his opponent that night was a determined and desperate Dustin Poirier. And let me tell you, once again, because I truly believe it, no other lightweight was going to be the Dustin we saw on the night of UFC 302. No one. But Islam, who didn't just grapple him, he outstruck him. He didn't just beat him, he finished him and put him to sleep. With a win over Dustin Poirier, Islam tied the title defense record at 3. One more victory, and Islam, statistically and likely overall, is the greatest lightweight of all time.
Islam knocks guys outstanding too. The head kick to Volkanovski speaks to that. He's just knocking down Oliveira. He's so good everywhere.
But it's weird. Match up Islam against any other lightweight and you will be comfortable betting money on Islam to win. That's how it has been for the past couple of years, but this time, I don't know. Arman is the one lightweight on the roster who can beat Islam, and it wouldn't be that big of a shocker. He's young, talented, in his prime, hungry for glory, and he is no stranger to the dominant lightweight champion. Both champion and challenger have improved massively since their first fights. Islam is most likely the better striker of the two, but Arman is one of the few opponents who won't be too worried about grappling.
Islam hasn't had a lot of opponents that way. Most of them were strikers that were trying to scramble. Arman is a wrestler first, and he can scramble and wrestle with Islam.
If Islam gets a body lock, shoots a single leg, or gets in the clinch, Arman isn't going to panic like most lightweights. He will fight back and attempt to take Islam down. Stupid move for the other lightweights, but I think Arman will be able to hang with Islam. This championship fight will display some of the most intense, skillful, and exhausting grappling exchanges you have ever seen. Like I said, Arman is one of the few who won't be terrified of grappling, and given the difference in striking, pressuring forward, and making this a tough, chaotic, and grueling brawl is his best game plan. For Islam Makhachev, his path to victory lies in sticking to the very foundation of his success, dominance through discipline and sheer skill. While Islam's grappling is his bread and butter, his evolution as a striker cannot be understated. His ability to outstrike a polished boxer like Dustin Poirier and deliver a head kick knockout to Alexander Volkanovski shows that he's far more than a wrestler. Against Arman Tsarukyan, Islam's striking is a key attribute.
Islam has continued to solidify himself as the best lightweight in the world by far. His hands are getting better. He just outstruck Poirier. He can outgrapple anybody.
Islam's precise timing and improved distance management will make every second spent on the feet hell for Arman. In grappling exchanges, despite having said that Arman can compete, this is still Islam we are talking about. While Arman's wrestling pedigree is impressive, his top control is suffocating, and the more time Arman spends defending takedowns or surviving from the bottom, the less effective he'll be in holding his own. This isn't just a title fight, it's a clash of eras. Arman represents the new wave of lightweights, and he has done well to get past the likes of Dariush and Charles, but Islam is a whole different beast, and he will be fighting to solidify his legacy as the greatest lightweight of all time. Whether Islam cements his place in history or Arman ushers in a new era, this fight is destined to be a classic. Which former light heavyweight champion will rise from the shadow of defeat and take one step closer to redemption? Yuri Prochazka or Jamal Hill? Will undefeated Umar Nurmagomedov succeed in stopping the relentless machine that is Merab Dvalishvili? Or will Merab prove once again why he's the king of the bantamweight division and probably the new GOAT? It's come full circle for Islam and Arman, two of the best lightweights on the planet. Years later, with both fighters having evolved into elite competitors, they face off once again, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Islam solidify his legacy as the greatest lightweight of all time, or will Arman usher in a new era and prove he's ready to take the throne? Father Plan reigns supreme, or the end of Dagestani dominance in the UFC? We'll find out. If you're trying to get access to the music playlist for this video and all the previous one, get our thumbnail designs, some editing tips and tricks, and your name as a producer, check out the Patreon right here.